Paul McGuire Report. I'm Paul McGuire. On today's program, we're going to talk about health, healing, and we're going to talk about it from different perspectives, such as God's healing, such as medical or alternative healing. And then I want to focus in on, at least from an overview standpoint, on things in our environment that are destroying our bodies and minds. I'm talking about things like EMF waves, Wi-Fi, 5G, cell phone transmissions, genetically modified organisms in our food, GMO foods, a whole spectrum of toxins, of poisons, of things that attack our DNA and break down our immune system. Our environment, and I'm not talking about the traditional definition of environment, like, trees and stuff. I'm talking about the environment in which we live, in which we should have, as a society, have control over, is attacking our health. In other words, we have a very destructive adversarial relationship between ourselves as people, the people we love, the people we know, and what is happening specifically in American society, European society, and societies around the world. And, on one level, you can look at everything and you can say, well, it's all circumstantial. It's all happen chance. It just randomly occurred. But over the last couple of decades, I would ponder this concept quite often. And I ate junk food, like many of you did, for many, many years of my life. Didn't think anything of nutrition. Didn't know anything about nutrition. Except when I got a sore throat or something in college, I would, buy a big bottle of orange juice. And then I remember my wife and I were at the Lambs Club in New York City, where I had a ministry, a concert ministry of contemporary Christian music where people would perform. And we had the best known Christian musical artists of that time would perform there. And I would be the host and minister, and many, many people would come to the Lord. And I remember there was a guy that was part of the ministry. He had a dual job. He worked for a particular television network as a cameraman on big shows, and then he devoted a lot of his time to the ministry. And I remember I would get like strep throats and stuff quite often in New York City. And, I didn't have a clue about nutrition. And he recommended to me that I should start drinking carrot juice at the first symptoms of sore throat or whatever. And first of all, the idea of drinking carrot juice was repulsive to me because I've never liked carrots, and drinking carrot juice sounded horrible. But I really, really was, no pun intended, sick and tired of getting sick and tired. So I remember sensing or feeling that possibly a strep throat was coming on, because for me, it would be a combination of a sore throat and the beginnings of a fever and chills. So I remembered his advice about how important carrot juice was. It contained vitamins that were powerful antioxidants. I didn't even know what an antioxidant was back then. This was a long time ago. So I panicked because nobody back then sold carrot juice except, some remote health food store somewhere. And there were hardly any health food stores in those days. So I walked into some kind of store near where the ministry was. And ironically, they sold cans of carrot juice, pop-top cans of carrot juice. And so I, began drinking a couple of cans and drank some more cans. And this was just in one day. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling incredibly better by the following day. And that had never happened before. When I had those symptoms, it was usually, I'd end up going to the doctor and getting antibiotics. I never had it go away before. And, I thought, well, maybe this is just circumstantial or whatever. And then I remembered beginning to get flus and colds and other things. And I would drink this canned carrot juice. And the normal routine of getting increasingly sick ended. It's like I either didn't get sick at all, or if I did get sick, the sickness or illness from the flu or the strep throat or whatever it was very, very lessened, and it lasted only like a day or two or three at most. And it's not that drinking carrot juice cured everything immediately all the time, but there was no question in my mind, none whatsoever, that whatever it was about carrot juice, it contained very, very powerful healing properties. And then my wife and I were dating at the time, and she began to drink carrot juice, and she experienced the same thing. So this guy was, in my opinion, a health fanatic at the time. But there was no question, and I've never heard this before, that drinking carrot juice really stimulates the immune system. And that was kind of like the first time the door opened in my mind, like the door opened just a crack so the light could come in. And I began the very slow journey into knowledge and wisdom about all kinds of things: antioxidants, nutrients, vitamins, juices, vegetables, etc. But it was for me because I was so, resistant, like many people are. I was so resistant to eating some of these foods because, junk food tastes a whole lot better. So for me, it was a slow process. But, when you are forced with challenges, you want remedies, and it's a real pain now and back then to make a doctor's appointment and then wait till you're really sick, so sick that you have to go to the doctor. So it was kind of piece by piece I began learning and reading and hearing other people's experiences about alternative medicine. And things like, you would think would be required study for all medical doctors. But as I understand it, the medical doctors that treat us, and I'm not knocking doctors, thank God we do have doctors, but they're only given one class on nutrition and healing. That's crazy. I was talking to a doctor sometime last year, and I told her I was taking friendly bacteria, and I could see the horror on her face. And she didn't know what I was talking about. And so I quickly added on, because I realized she did not understand the term friendly bacteria. I quickly added on, probiotics. And she didn't know what the term probiotics. This is a medical doctor, and she didn't know what the term probiotics meant. And then I explained stuff like acidelphus and other cultures are very, very powerful in healing the body of a whole variety of conditions. I mean, I wish all the times that I had food poisoning in my life, and for all of you that have had food poisoning, it's one of the most again, no pun intended, sickening experiences you can have. It's just, you feel nauseous. It's horrible. But then I learned that if you take heavy doses of really good probiotics, the kind that are either refrigerated or contain, that have integrity, you don't go into the last place you want to get vitamins, nutritional products, and things like probiotics. The last place you want to buy them is in these chain drugstores around the country, because first of all, the prices are marked up so high on all of the products. I mean, it's like 5 times the price of vitamins and nutrients you could buy through some health food store or on the internet or whatever. They're way overpriced. And on top of that, the integrity and the quality of the vitamins and nutrients that are sold in these chain drugstores is awful. I mean, they're not potent. There's no integrity in the manufacturing of things like probiotics or vitamins or whatever. So, my personal advice to you, and I'm not pretending to be a doctor, and by the way, nothing on this program, the Paul McGuire Report, should be construed as me giving medical advice to you or medical advice regarding any condition you may have. I am not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. And you need to consult your physician or recognized authorities in the field. And I'm saying that as a disclaimer because I don't want somebody running off and not going to the doctor because I told the story about strep throat and, the strep throat gets really bad and somebody gets sick or something like that in a bad way. I'm saying I'm not a doctor. Nothing I'm saying constitutes medical advice. You need to go to a doctor if necessary. So that has to be said in this day and age. But what I'm simply talking to you about is my experience, the experiences of others. So it's not to be construed as medical advice. We're talking about it. It's a discussion. So when I learned that you can take probiotics for food poisoning, it's been my experience that if I bombard myself or my family or my wife in those rare occasions where we've had food poisoning with antibiotics, really good antibiotics, I didn't say antibiotics, I didn't mean to say antibiotics, probiotics, the friendly bacteria. If you bombard yourself with probiotics, the friendly bacteria, and drink lots of water, you will find, in most cases, that the food poisoning goes away very quickly or far more quickly. Now, that's why you need to you need to consult a medical doctor, because there are certain types of food poisoning which require that you get antibiotics prescribed by a doctor, because whatever it is, whatever germs you've gotten into your body through food or water, they're destructive enough that you need a medical diagnosis to see if antibiotics are required. But even for me, when it comes to even really bad cases of food poisoning in my family and people that I've talked to, if you're taking good quality probiotics, friendly bacteria like acidophilus and things like that, it's amazing. In addition, it helps digestion, it helps absorbing nutrients, and there's a whole spectrum of problems, health problems and medical problems that Americans, especially because of our awful diet, suffer from, where regularly taking probiotics does amazing things. Now, also, you need to exercise discernment, just like spiritual discernment is essential. Discernment when it comes to the integrity and quality of nutritional products, vitamins, and things like probiotics, it's critical, because unfortunately we live in a society, in a world where a lot of people are just out to make money and make a buck. And you can spend a lot of money buying any nutritional product, including probiotics, and get something that has no integrity to it at all, which means it's so low grade, it's of such bad quality that it's basically useless. And you really have to know and find a reliable source, a source that has integrity in its manufacturing, before you go out and spend money on things like vitamins, nutrients, herbs, probiotics, etc. But it's amazing, you know, and this has not been my only experience with a doctor. This doctor knew nothing, didn't even know what acidophilus was. I mean, these are cultures that are in yogurt and kefir drinks and things like that. And usually it's a selling point. So on different brands of yogurt and kefir, you know, they'll talk about the probiotics and brag about it on the container or the yogurt cup or whatever, and it'll list all the different cultures it has, you know, boasting about its potency. But just off the top of my head, you should be very wary and suspicious and scrutinizing whenever you buy food from the big food companies, just like we have the big pharma, the big pharmaceutical companies. The big food companies, I don't know exactly how many they are, but like the vast majority of all of our foods that we would buy in your traditional, you know, large supermarket, it's something like approximately, there's like 7 major big food companies that control, 7 or less, that control basically almost all the food we here in America consume. And I'll just be blunt with you. I'm going to be really blunt with you because I want to see you live. The vast majority of the food they manufacture is junk, it's garbage, and in many cases, it's very, very bad for you and can, in the long term, contribute to disease, the destruction of your immune system, and many other negative health effects. Why? Because there's no integrity in the big food companies manufacturing. They spend a ton of money trying to persuade you about how healthy their food is and how good it is for you. Like, you know, I'm tempted to name brand name cereals, but we all can think off the top of our head of all these cereals that, you know, all these ads that tell us how healthy these cereals are. And it's a bold-faced lie. They're not healthy. They're horrible for you. Look at the ingredients. When you go into a major supermarket, food retailer type place, and you go down the aisles, and again, there's all the food that's packed into that store is all made by less than 7 major food companies. And all you have to do is pick up a box or a carton or anything, any food product. It's required by law that the ingredients of a food product is posted on the box or the container or, you know, whatever is holding that food or liquid. The ingredients have to be listed. And if you look at the ingredients that are listed, you need to look at it before you buy it. You'll read a long list of ingredients. And probably 90% to 80% of the ingredients, the additives, are very bad for you and can cause disease. I'm talking about artificial dyes and colorings, chemicals that deliberately, artificially stimulate your taste buds so that the ice cream tastes like wonderful beyond your imagination. I mean, if I was talking to you in a conference or something, or in a group setting, and I asked you to raise your hands on how many people, when they give in, which I do, it's not good, to ice cream, how it's just like, it's wonderful beyond description. You practically get a high eating the ice cream. Why is that? Is it because the ice cream is so good in terms of its quality? No. It's because when you look at the ingredients, and by the way, the ingredients mostly use disguised names, legally disguised names, or more scientific names or alternative names for the real ingredients, so the customer, like you and me, we don't get alarmed by what we read. But there are chemicals put into most of these foods, especially desserts and ice creams and chips and stuff like that. There are chemicals that are called excitotoxins. Excitotoxins. And what they do is they're actually poisonous, but they are a chemical additive which super stimulates your nervous system. So it supercharges and activates your taste buds so that when you eat the ice cream with sugar or chocolate or whatever, or just the cream, it's like you're having an ecstatic experience, because your taste buds are being artificially stimulated by these excitotoxin chemicals. Not because the food is of such great quality. It's in the same way. How many of you have had the experience, and I know it can't just be me, you pick up a bag of chips, okay, or pretzels or whatever, and you have one, and the next thing you know, you're consuming, or on your way to consuming, the entire bag. Now, it might take an hour or whatever, and some of you are probably saying, Paul, you're such a pig. You need to control yourself. Well, what's happening is those excitotoxins, those chemicals that are stimulating your taste buds when you're eating chips and all kinds of foods, makes the taste of the potato chip or whatever kind of chip that whatever kind of chip you're eating, it tastes so good, it's addictive, and your body craves having more. And that's why you can end up stuffing your face with the entire bag if you're not careful. So we have to keep a lot of things out of our house for that reason. Now, but when you look at the list of ingredients, what's really there are a lot of things that are put there to make the food last forever. I mean, literally. To always make it taste fresh, to make it just the right color so it's very appealing to your eyes, just the right smell, just the right touch, and how the substance of the food, like you want ice cream that stays together as ice cream. Now, today we have ice creams that are so filled with. If you want to know how bad ice cream is, and believe me, I'm a potential. I'm not a recovering ice cream addict. I am an ice cream addict. And so I should probably, I'm not trying to make fun of people who go to recovery groups, but I don't have time to go to an ice cream recovery group, but I'm certainly not a recovered ice cream addict. It's always lurking in me. I mean, all we have to do is have ice cream and hot fudge sauce, and man, if I walk by that, it's a miracle if I don't start devouring it. So, if you want to know just how bad this outrageous, I can think of all these outrageously delicious ice creams. See, even now, I'm talking like an addict because I love ice cream, and I have a couple of favorite brands. But I never buy those brands unless they're on sale, because what I've noticed is that the brands I like are more expensive brands in the supermarket, and I'm not going to pay full price for it, because even though I'm an ice cream addict, I just feel it's a waste of money to spend that much for a pint or a quart or whatever of that ice cream. It's just too overpriced. So you probably know this. A lot of you are probably smart shoppers. Every couple of weeks, they rotate what ice creams are on a big discount, especially if you have the supermarket's club card or whatever. So I'll never pay full price. I just feel like it's burning money, and I'm not being a good steward of the money God has given me. So I wait till my favorite ice creams are on sale, and they usually have a super discount, and then I'll buy it. But I've noticed that all food manufacturers, ever since 2008, when we had the economic crisis, what happened was, the reality is that all foods and the manufacturing of foods and the cost of foods began to skyrocket after 2008, when we had the economic crisis. And the cost of the food that they were trying to sell, like these more expensive ice cream brands and stuff, was so astronomically high that people weren't buying it at all. It was just way too expensive. So what the big food chains did is they began to shrink the size and amount of the food. Okay? I mean, they've been playing that game for years. How many of you have been around long enough where they have these big candy bar wrappers to give you the illusion that you're buying, beneath that wrapper, the candy bar you're buying is the size of the wrapper, but in reality, it's just a big wrapper with the smaller piece of candy in it. And if you go and buy a lot of products now, you'll see that's the norm. In all kinds of items, they'll have a big bag, a big box, or whatever, but when you open it, you'll see what I call the shrink factor, and that is the actual food product you're buying is small, but they're still using a big wrapper or a big carton or whatever, or box. So, and then they do other things. They have lowered the quality of their ingredients. So even in my favorite ice cream brands, I noticed that one in particular, and even now I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not going to buy this ice cream brand. I don't care how much I like it. First of all, I don't like the causes that the owners of this ice cream company donate to. Number two is they don't have integrity, because what they did after 2008 is they went out and used substantially inferior ingredients in their ice cream, where before, what made their ice cream taste great was they were using, you know, the best quality this, the best quality of that. And what they did after 2008 is they made the serving sizes much smaller. They used much cheaper ingredients. And so to substitute for the cheaper ingredients and still keep the taste tasting good, they substituted nice ingredients like, you know, good quality nuts, good quality chocolate, good quality ice cream with stuff with just a bunch of chemicals in it to artificially fool you. And they're quite good at that. And so you think, oh, I'm still getting the same quality of ice cream. But no, you're not. If you look at the ingredients and you just look at the ice cream, you're basically getting a chemical soup. And that's how they keep their manufacturing costs down. So here's the test for ice cream. And you all know it, because you've all made the same mistake I have. You leave out by accident, like, what is it, a gallon of ice cream? I can't even remember, whatever it is. You leave out a big container of ice cream, okay, until it melts. And you notice something when the ice cream melts, is it separates. On the top, what rises to the top of the melted ice cream container is this kind of frothy, like, it doesn't even taste like ice or cream or milk. It kind of tastes chemicals like it's fake milk or fake ice cream. But it's frothy and it has somewhat of an ice cream taste or feel to it. But that rises to the top. And then on the bottom, and it's really scary to look at it if you look at it carefully, on the bottom, there's a couple of inches at least, if not sometimes 50% of the amount of so-called ice cream it separates. 50% is this frothy, light, kind of ice cream-like stuff that floats to the top. It doesn't taste that great. And then on the bottom, there's the other 50%, and it looks like motor oil, you know, like the kind of oil you pour in the engine of your car. And here's a reality check. That oil, that is somewhere between 40% or 50% of what's in that container of ice cream after it's melted. It is an oil, but guess what? It's a man-made oil, like a hydrogenated oil and other kinds of oils. And that has the same, not the exact same, but it has close to the same effect on your body and your mind as drinking motor oil from a car. It gets stuck in your arteries, it clogs your heart arteries and brain arteries, and it sticks in your body like motor oil would. It doesn't digest. This is how people get clogged arteries and they die and have heart attacks and their brains go bad, because it's essentially it's similar to a motor oil in some capacities. It's just called hydrogenated oil. And you can buy, just see the food industry is so dishonest, like so many other industries. It's just they're built on lies. They, advertise all this healthy peanut butter, how healthy peanut butter is. And you can even buy the organic peanut butter and the so-called healthy peanut butter for you or your children. But the reality is that too, before you stir, especially if you buy the organic, all the oils on the top and you have to manually stir it. But that's in the peanut butter where it's all mixed together anyway. It's filled with a lot of the same hydrogenated oil type stuff that separates when the ice cream melts. And it clogs your arteries. It's man-made oil, like motor oil, and it kills the body, the brain, and everything else. So the reason I'm saying this is that if the ice cream doesn't melt, you don't know. It fools you. You don't realize. I mean, even the frothy part that kind of looks like ice cream is filled with chemicals and toxins. But then that oil is designed to, it's the cheapest way they can manufacture what they call ice cream. But in a sense, about 50% of the so-called ice cream that I love and you love is basically made with, it's not the same as motor oil, but it's like related to motor oil. It's a hydrogenated oil. It doesn't digest. It's completely man-made. It's artificial. It's synthetic. It's horrible for you. It's just when it's all mixed together and the ice cream is frozen, you're fooled. And because they put so many excitotoxins in it, you think it tastes delicious. But how could it be delicious if half of it is like motor oil? It isn't. Your brain is being fooled because of the dyes, the color, the smell that it has. That's a smell that makes the ice cream appealing, and all the chemicals that stimulate your taste buds. And the same thing with peanut butter and many, many, many other products. Okay, so I'm just talking about a couple of products and how bad they are for you. You go into your normal supermarket, and whatever you buy, whether it's milk, I remember when I was hosting my other radio show, I had a lot of advertisers, and it was a nationally syndicated radio show. I mean, the Paul McGuire Report that you're listening to now is heard all over the world. But we don't have advertisers because we're a ministry, and we're not looking to sell products and, in a sense, charge you for the service. We're trying to offer this radio program and the information to minister the gospel and communicate truth. And health is an important truth because we are the stewards of the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is our physical body. And God expects us to take care of the temple of the Holy Spirit, because whether we're parents, mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, singles, whatever we are, we're not going to have the lifespan we need or the health we need to fulfill the destiny that God has for us if we don't take care of our physical body and our brain. And our physical body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. That biological body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and God expects us to take care of it. And one of the primary ways we take care of it, once again, is you're not going to find this information reading the mainstream magazines, like women's magazines. I don't want to name different women's magazines, but you're not going to find the information there. It's hidden. You're not going to find the information very often in the mainstream media because, you see, they're all part of the same club of the world system. And it's built on lies. So you're going to have to self-educate yourself by reading and listening to programs like this and reading books that are written by authors of integrity who've done their research and are telling you the truth. Not all the phony nutritional health experts that lie, and they're subsidized by the big food corporations. So it's important to know what you're eating. So you go back to the list of ingredients and you read it carefully, and the vast majority of the ingredients of any food product that you buy in a big supermarket, somewhere between 80 to 90% of those ingredients are toxic poisonous, can cause disease, are harmful to your health, can produce cancer, and all kinds of things. I'm not saying it does it immediately, but we're talking about food eating, dessert eating habits that we have for years. It will kill you incrementally, slowly over time, without noticing it. It can shorten your lifespan. And then people wonder at certain ages where they wake up and they're not fully functional. They can't think right. Their bodies don't move right. They have all these problems, and it's not just due to the fact that they have aged or gotten older. I mean, that has something to do with it. But what's causing their bodies and minds to degrade and deteriorate is not just aging. It's the fact that when you've put into your body poisons and toxins and cancer-producing chemicals, etc., it affects different people different ways. Some people, and it depends what kind of diabetes. I'm not saying all diabetes is due to bad eating habits, but there are certain kinds of diabetes that medical doctors have said can be activated by having a lousy diet and no exercise. And there are a whole range of negative health conditions that we can have that are attributed to what we're eating and what we're drinking. And so you look at those ingredients and you find out what those ingredients really are, and then you ingest them over time, they will kill you or kill your brain or whatever. So you have to be careful about what I say for legal reasons, but there's a number of artificial sweeteners, one in particular. It's a brain killer. It's a flat-out brain killer. Now it's still being suppressed, but this chemical, which is an artificial sweetener, will destroy your brain. And rather quickly. I mean, there are certain things you can drink, and if it has this particular artificial sweetener in it, it will affect your capacity immediately after drinking it to think, remember, concentrate, focus, and many other things. That's how bad it is for you. There's a particular kind of red dye that's used in a lot of processed meats, like bacon, like ham, like salami, like hot dogs. It's a particular red dye. And there have been numerous and countless medical studies by doctors and groups that have integrity. And it has been proven over and over again that this particular red dye, which is used for many, many different food products by the big food corporations, is a known cancer-producing agent. And that a significant number of kids and adults, etc., get cancers because they're big eaters of hot dogs and ham and bacon and a whole spectrum of food products that they want to sell, so they want it to have that perfect color of red to it. But that red dye is a cancer-producing dye, yet they still use it. See, that's no integrity. And we could talk about a lot of other things. Now, and here's one thing that we need to talk about. When you go into these supermarkets, almost every food item or every food product is made not with organic or purely natural ingredients or foods like nuts or tomatoes, or you name wheat, flour. I mean, we could name an endless list of foods that are used in making and selling foods. And here in California, even though the people of California overwhelmingly voted to make it a law that every food corporation, the big food corporations and the small food corporations, had to, along with a list of ingredients on their boxes and cartons of food, etc., and their fruits and vegetables, they had to list by law whether they were using truly organic, natural, pure, vegetables, tomatoes, strawberries, wheat, beans, or whatever, whether it was organic, natural, and pure, or whether it was created in a laboratory where when scientists modify the genetic code or the DNA of foods, fruits, vegetables, and flowers, and all kinds of things, when they genetically modify those foods, and these are foods God made, like corn and soy and just tens of thousands of other food products. So we voted in California to make it a law that these big food corporations had to list whether they were using genetically modified organisms. That means where the scientists, changed the genetic code on the fruits and the vegetables and all the other foods. It had to be listed, okay, and explained in detail, so that the customer was supposed to have the right to know whether they were eating a real tomato or something made with real wheat or real oranges or bananas or whatever, or it was being made with GMOs, genetically modified organisms. And even though California overwhelmingly voted to make it a law that the big food corporations list whether they were using GMOs, genetically modified organisms, the will of the people of California was overruled. There was deceptive advertising. These food corporations have lots of money. And so even though we voted to make it illegal to sell foods without posting that you're selling a genetically modified organism, they just ran over the will of the people because they got so many billions of dollars. And that has affected you, because in the state that you live in, I'm not aware, I could be wrong, but I'm not aware of any state in the United States where the food corporations are required to list whether you're buying a genetically modified organism or a GMO or not. Now, what kind of Food and Drug Administration do you have where they would not enforce it? I mean, do you think they're operating with integrity? Because if there is, GMOs are just as healthy for you. Genetically modified organisms, GMO wheat, GMO corn, GMO soy, GMO whatever, beans, whatever. It's perfectly healthy for you. If that's their rationale for not making the food corporations list it, that's a flat-out lie. If you go into the houses of people that are wealthy and very affluent, you will see that in their families and what they feed their children is basically almost exclusively all organic, pure, natural foods. They do not feed their children GMO foods of any kind. They are fully aware, and they have the money to spend more, but they're fully aware of how poisonous and dangerous GMO foods are. So you got a Food and Drug Administration that's on the take, not helping you, not looking out for your interests. And if someone tells you there's no nutritional difference between the GMO foods and the non-GMO foods, that's a flat-out lie. I have, you know, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a medical scientist, but I do research, and I was listening to this very brilliant female biologist who on a video who participated and directed a study of the diseases and bad health effects that eating and consuming GMO foods, fruits, vegetables, etc., how it breaks down our cells negatively, how it opens the door for all kinds of diseases, how it lowers our immune system, and the eating of GMO food is directly responsible, according to this prominent female biologist, directly responsible for all kinds of diseases that we never have had before in our society. In fact, this female biologist and her fellow scientists who conducted extensive research on the negative effects of GMO foods, they came to the conclusion that the eating and consuming of GMO foods and the genetically modified organisms, which we call GMO, fruits, vegetables, wheats, whatever, it was like the number 3. It was one of the top 3 reasons for all sickness and disease and the breakdown of our minds and bodies. I think it was number 3. It was the number it was the number 3 reason for all these diseases and bodily breakdowns and brain problems and cancers, and because it affected the eating of GMO foods and liquids causes a chain reaction in the human body that makes it like self-destruct. That's how powerfully dangerous it is. It's not a small thing. And I'll just shorten my explanation in layman's terms. She showed diagrams of the human cell and how eating GMO foods causes a particular chemical or chemicals, and it penetrates our human cell at the most microscopic molecular level. It penetrates our cells and our DNA, corrupting our whole biological system. And it kills us. And then she explained that the history behind this devastation, which is relatively recent, I don't remember when GMO foods really began to take off. What was it, 20 years ago? Maybe longer than that. The largest manufacturer, the company that owns all the rights to, you know, not only do they own all the rights to genetically modified things like potatoes and corn and wheat and oranges and strawberries and, you know, endless amount of foods. They own the rights to all the seeds that produce all these fruits and vegetables. They own the rights. And they have such power that they control the agricultural industry here in the United States and around the world. And they have bought up or have attempted to buy up all the original, pure, organic, God-made seeds. And they have forced people, especially in starving countries, to buy what's called the Terminator seeds. These are genetically modified seeds for like oranges, any fruit and vegetable you can think of, any natural food, any food that God made. They have re-engineered and changed the genetics of the food. So not only does it have all these toxins and produces all these diseases, but these genetically modified seeds are called Terminator seeds because they're only good for one planting and one harvest. And unlike the harvest that God created, if you have a non-genetically modified apple tree in your backyard, or oranges, non-genetically modified, you can seasonally, your tree or your vine will produce, you know, all of these fruits and vegetables seasonally, without fail, unless there's some, you know, really freezing temperature or a drought or something. And you will be able to have an infinite and endless supply of food from just one seed, because every season, the fruits and the vegetables or whatever naturally reproduce, and they cast out seeds that you can plant anywhere that will create new apple trees and new vines and so on and so forth. But you see, when this powerful company goes into a third world nation or goes into America and forces, let's say, a farmer or whatever to use only their, you know, you're supposed to be able to plant a kernel of corn and grow a corn crop infinitely on a seasonal basis. But after they've genetically modified, the kernel of corn is only good for one harvest. And what this does is, no matter what fruit and vegetable you're talking about, you are forced to go back to this company, which owns the rights, because you can't, it's very hard to get your hands on the original ungenetically modified seeds and organisms, because you wouldn't need them. And you're forced to, every year, instead of just naturally allowing the seeds to produce the new crop the way God intended, you now have farmers in third world nations, farmers in the U.S. and around the world, forced to go back to this company every year and to buy a whole new bunch of seeds, which is quite costly, because they've re-engineered God's seed and made it only good for one crop, and then you've got to buy it from them, when God designed it to go into the earth and produce endless crops. It's evil. And how this seed was made, the genetically modified seeds that produce the genetically modified oranges and avocados or whatever you want to talk about, this company that now controls the rights to the world's seeds and are forcing people to buy Terminator seeds. This company started out in the business of creating a highly, highly poisonous weed killer. This giant seed and genetically modified organism company began its start by producing one of the most toxic poisons and weed killers. All right, and then they made so much money on that that they re-engineered seeds and bought up all the seeds, and they control it. And there are still farmers who grow organic crops. And you can buy them in certain stores. They're usually priced higher, but there are still farmers in nations and in America who use the seeds that God invented. And those are the organic crops. And those are seeds that don't produce fruits and vegetables, etc., with genetically modified organisms which cause disease and break down the human body. But it's very challenging for these organic farmers to do this because they're under attack by the giant farms and food production and fields that just are using these Terminator seeds. Because the same company that started out making a highly toxic poisonous weed killer, they actually changed the genetic code of their Terminator crops to be able to artificially withstand the very weed-killing poisons that they've manufactured and that other people have manufactured. So what that means is that if there's like an organic farmer who has his field near a giant farmer who's using genetically modified seeds to produce genetically modified, fruits or vegetables or whatever, and his farm is near the organic farm. What happens is the genetically modified seeds and plants and vegetables and fruits, that crop will, by design, invade and take over and kill the organic crop by sucking up all the nutrients out of the ground and destroying the integrity of the organic farmer's harvest, because it will be so mixed in with the genetically modified organism that it won't be organic anymore. And the reason that the poisonous seeds, the GMO seeds, are able to do that is that they change the genetics on them so that they're immune from the effects of these very powerful weed-killing poisons, because weed-killing poisons don't just kill weeds, they kill crops too. And so an organic farmer he doesn't want poisons on his crop, but if he's near, he could be a very safe distance away, a long distance away from a genetically modified seed and fruits and vegetables farm. And that crop will creep and take over his organic fruits and vegetables. So an organic farmer, the only way he could protect himself is to create a barrier with weed killer and poison that's very toxic to stop the invasion of the genetically modified seeds, fruits and vegetables from destroying his organic crop. And then what he does, the organic farmer leaves sufficient space between the area he's poisoned to be a barrier. The organic farmer leaves sufficient space so that none of the poisons trickle into his organic crop. But he has to put up that wall of poison, or a physical wall, or whatever. Otherwise, by design, the genetically modified crop will destroy the purity of his crop. But this is the problem. The genetically modified organisms and the genetically modified seeds and fruits and vegetables, they are resistant to weed killer. So the genetically modified organisms, seeds, fruits, and vegetables that are toxic, they just can move right through soil that has been sprayed with very powerful poisons, because they are genetically modified organism crops that are now immune to the effects of high-powered poisons. Whereas the farmer with integrity who's growing an organic crop, those poisons will kill his organic crop, and his organic crop will not invade the harvest of the genetically modified organisms. It'll stay away. But the genetically modified organism crop are like parasites or vampires. They can't be stopped. Do you see how dishonest it is? So that's the strategy of this company, to destroy all organic crops. And you need to know that, because when I was listening to the female biologist in her study, she went into great detail showing us pictures under microscopes of the cellular level of these genetically modified organism crops and seeds. And one of the things they did when they genetically changed fruits and vegetables and their seeds is they change on the microscopic molecular level. By penetrating the interior of the cell, they made some very dangerous changes, which causes our human bodies to break down, which damages our immune system, which gives us cancers and a whole huge spectrum of diseases, because the microscopic process involved in changing the genetic code of the genetically modified organisms, the seeds and the fruits and the vegetables, their genetic code has been changed at the microscopic level, and when we eat their fruits and vegetables or foods made with GMO, we're eating a very deeply corrupted, poisonous genetics, and we're bringing it into our body, and it causes it's the number 3 primary source for all these diseases that didn't used to happen. You see how evil that is? I mean, that's pure evil. Pure evil. So, people, Christians, need to be aware of this, because I hear all the time, well, I just eat fruits and vegetables. I don't believe in vitamins or herbs or nutrients. Well, that's great, but hey, wake up and smell the organic coffee. You're not just eating fruits and vegetables like your grandmother did or your parents did. You're eating fruits and vegetables that the people of France called, because the globalists want to force all the nations to sell specific products to one another. And so the globalists forced the people of France to eat American genetically modified organism food. And the French refused to eat it because they knew it was poison. And the French called our food, rightly so, Frankenstein foods. That they didn't want to eat American Frankenstein foods, because our foods were like Frankenstein, made by mad scientists. They're not real. And they didn't want to die of all the diseases, You know, there's a reason why people have enormous weight gain. And it's not because they don't have self-control. It's not because they're not on diets. It's not because they're not exercising. So many people feel guilt and shame over their weight, but they don't understand that they're eating genetically modified organisms and the foods of these big food corporations, which were filled with toxins and poisons that are causing enormous weight gain. But you'll never know that because it's hidden from you. And enormous weight gain creates health problems. So when people say to me, and I hear it all the time among Christians, well, I believe I get all my nutrients from fruits and vegetables. Yeah, but wake up. I mean, you've got to self-educate yourself. You can't walk around. There was a movie, The Boy in the Bubble or something. You can't walk around as a boy or a girl in a bubble. You've got to educate yourself, and you have to do it from credible alternative sources, not the mainstream media liars and propagandists. Because the reality is, you need to know, and many of you already know, but for those that don't, and those that have friends that don't, the fruits and vegetables that you're eating are, unless you're organic, and you know it's really organic, you're buying fruits and vegetables that don't contain the same levels of antioxidants and polyphenols and nutrients and vitamins that God created them to have, which if people had not tampered with the seeds, then yeah, it would be great that you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables because you would be healthy. But the problem is you're eating fruits and vegetables from a food supply that has been genetically corrupted, genetically modified organisms, and they don't have the same levels of nutritional value. They have molecular changes that open your body and mind to a vast spectrum of diseases and degradation and toxins and cancers and diabetes and all kinds of stuff. That's what you're eating. You think you're eating fruits and vegetables, but you're eating, and they don't want you to know it. That's why they use their power to make sure it wasn't you weren't allowed to know from the label whether it's a GMO food. You're what the French call Frankenstein American fruits and vegetables that not only have toxins and poisonous chemicals. I'm talking about in the eating of like bananas and peaches and watermelon and avocado, you know, whatever it is. And it's a genetically modified organism. So, what are you going to do to stay healthy? You have to stop eating foods where have genetically modified the fruits and vegetables, and in that genetic modification, you're now ingesting, consuming, and absorbing food that's causing a chain reaction of lowering your immune system, making you open to all kinds of diseases, degradation of your body, toxins that cause all kinds of devastating effects on human health. And you're being, to put it bluntly, by eating GMO fruits and vegetables and foods, as long as you do that, that's synonymous with being under attack by an army of chemicals and cells that are out to kill you and shorten your life. That's the reality of it. I'm not exaggerating it one iota. I'm telling you the truth. That's the flat-out truth. You can choose not to believe it, but the only people who choose not to believe it are the same people who choose to believe the nonsense through mind control and brainwashing. And let me just give you a couple of examples. You go into these big food retailers, and the big food chain supermarkets. Advertising is brainwashing. Advertising is propaganda, and advertising is mind control. That's why I'm offering to anyone listening to the Paul McGuire Report that 4-book bundle on mind control, programming, hypnosis, brainwashing. 4 powerful books at a discount, the 4-book bundle. And then you can download the documentary I've produced called American Mind Wars, The Coming Crisis. It's very powerful. It explains in a fast-moving way how you're being brainwashed, indoctrinated, subject to propaganda, and the techniques they use, etc. Okay, so you have these giant food corporations, and they have trillions of dollars to spend, and they're saving who knows how many trillions or billions of dollars by making their foods with chemicals and by using genetically modified organisms. By the way, the reason they make genetically modified organism fruits and vegetables, etc., is you can artificially change the genetics, and your blueberries will be bigger, your apples will be bigger, your corn will be bigger, the color will look better, it will be fresher looking. Now they finally have changed it so it tastes good for the most part. It's larger, it tastes good, it has a longer shelf life, so that the fruits and vegetables, don't start to rot and deteriorate in the store. And you can get it at a cheaper price because they're artificially manufacturing it. So it's more money for them. More money. They can produce more crops faster. The harvest is shorter. The fruits and vegetables can withstand temperature changes and other stuff. So this is a big money-making thing for them. And you think you're getting a better deal because the food is cheaper and looks better and, for the most part, potentially tastes better if it's a GMO. But the problem is it's not healthy for you. So, how you're under attack, and again, this stuff works incrementally over time. But the reason you don't know you're under attack, and the reason you believe that their food is healthy and nutritious and good for you, is you're being bombarded by watching television, reading magazines, radio, through the media, through the internet, through social media. You're being bombarded with commercials and videos and pictures of how appealing, how tasty, how wonderful their GMO foods and fruits and vegetables and GMO products like yogurt. Let's just take yogurt, okay? Yogurt's supposed to be so healthy for you. Well, yogurt is not so healthy for you if it's made by one of the big food chains. First of all, the so-called fruit in it, or fruit taste, is either artificial, or if they manage to throw one blueberry into a little container of yogurt, it's a blueberry that is made from a GMO, genetically modified organism. And then the probiotics that are in it that they brag about are vastly inferior, and they're not of good quality, so that they don't produce health benefits. And the actual composition of the yogurt comes from genetically modified organisms. So far from yogurt being a healthy food for you, it's poisonous. It's toxic. It lowers your immune system. Let me give you another example. We're bombarded with the idea that milk is healthy for children, blah, 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 blah. I had a health expert on that I interviewed for my radio program, and this health expert told me, and it's a scientific fact, that the average gallon of milk has a minimum of at least 80 artificial compounds that have been added to the milk. 80 artificial compounds. such as hormones, such as chemical additives, such as genetically modified organisms, such as dyes, and all these other chemicals to make the milk taste better, look better, last longer. But we're talking about a combination of 80, many of them are toxic and hurt your health, chemicals and hormones. When children and adults are drinking milk that's packed with hormones or meats or chicken or whatever, it throws off everything. You're talking about your primary hormones being messed up. That creates a whole spectrum of illnesses. So what this health expert told me essentially is that non-organic milk is poisonous. And then in our family for years, we were sucker punched by the lie, the propaganda, the brainwashing, the mind control, that soy milk was a healthy alternative to, cow's milk. And it turned out, after about 10 years, the truth came out that soy milk was deliberately concocted by the big food chains to be a cheaper way to make profit on a milk product, and that the soy, first of all, comes from the soybean, is a genetically modified organism, and there are all kinds of toxic chemicals, genetically modified organisms, and negative health effects from using soy to produce soy milk. It changes hormone levels radically. And it does other things that are very, very bad for your health. So it turns out that soy milk, the truth about soy milk is that it's as bad for your health as cow's milk. And that same lying process is repeated all the time. So you're bombarded with all these TV commercials about how this cereal is really healthy, and this yogurt is healthy, and this peanut butter is healthy, and this, these health food bars, made with special grains and stuff. And none of it's healthy. First of all, why do you think there's a huge number of people that are allergic to wheat, and many people that are allergic to wheat that don't realize they're allergic to wheat? Because years ago, they genetically modified the way they produce wheat. And the wheat that we're told, has 7 grains and all these grains of wheat. Yeah, but the problem is that all these grains in the wheat that's supposed to be healthy are from genetically modified organisms, and the whole wheat, every wheat is been altered. It's not the wheat of 1,000 years ago, when the eating of wheat products was actually nutritious and healthy and not bad for you, because we've genetically modified it. So again, you're under all-out assault, the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is your body, and you have to fight back. You literally have to have a mindset of declaring war, because you're being attacked. Your children are being attacked. And you say, well, I don't believe that. That's too conspiratorial. You know what? If you were self-educated and you studied and you read and you knew what you're talking about, and then you said that, then people who actually know the truth area would potentially listen to you. But if you're going to be a fool, and that's not a disparaging statement, this is simply a classification of what you have chosen to be. When I say you, not regular listeners of the Paul McGuire Report, people that have made the choice that they don't want to read, they don't want to study, they don't want to examine the facts, they just want to believe the brainwashing that they read in, certain women's magazines or TV commercials they watch. And on the basis of no facts, no scientific research, they're just going to believe that they're eating healthy, nutritional food. And nobody could be so evil as to put genetically modified organisms into the food chain. Well, I hate to break it to you, they have, and they've been doing it for years. And that's the truth, and that's a fact. And if you do a minimal of research, that means you don't go to the mainstream media. And you don't go to some wacko Area 51 conspiracy website either. You have to choose sources that have integrity. You have to declare war against the invasion of toxins, of genetic alteration that opens diseases. I mean, you're under a wide spectrum of attack. So the only way you can combat it is you have to supplement. Now, again, you should seek the advice of a doctor, a medical professional or doctor that's trained not just in traditional Western medicine, which means give out a lot of drugs, but is also trained in nutrition, knows about the GMO foods, knows about vitamins, herbs, and the whole spectrum of healing. You should seek out a medical professional, especially if you have an existing health condition or you think you might have a health condition. You shouldn't just run off and radically change your diet, because you would need to consult with somebody who knew your health, but who knows all these things about nutrition and GMO foods, etc., as well as medicine. And you have to fight back. So assuming that you've checked out with a medical professional that knows and has expertise in nutrition and herbs and vitamins, etc., you have to fight back and start taking supplements which contain a quality of vitamins, herbs, and nutrients, and antioxidants and polyphenols and other substances which have integrity and potency and are pure. Because you have to stimulate your body's immune system. You have to flush out the toxins, the poisons, the cancer-producing foods, the disease-producing foods. You have to purge your body of those things, and you have to stimulate your God-given God-given immune system at its maximum potential. And you can't come up with the answer of, oh, well, I eat my fruits and vegetables. Yeah, GMO foods and vegetables. And that's where I'm getting my vitamins and minerals. Oh, in addition to the fact that you're killing yourself because you're eating fruits and vegetables from genetically modified organisms and other food products which have poisons and toxins and chemicals, you need to understand another basic fact, which is the soil which we use in America and most of the other developed nations in the world, the soil in America and other developed nations contains almost no nutrients and minerals. So when you're artificially stimulating the growth of crops, fruits, vegetables, or whatever, because you've tinkered with the genetic code of the fruits and the vegetables and the crops, so you're artificially stimulating their growth, their color, and their taste, but you plant them to save money in a soil that maybe has been used for 100 different crops or more. Could be thousands of crops. But you have never allowed the soil to replenish itself, because after a very short period of time of harvesting crops, the God-given plan is that the fruits and vegetables grow out of a soil that feeds them with nutrients, vitamins, God-given substances which heal the body, like polyphenols, etc. The soil has to be rich in healing minerals, healing vitamins, healing nutrients, because it's out of that the fruits and vegetables get their minerals and nutrients. But if you're using soil that has been stripped and never replenished, producing unhealthy fruits and vegetables, not to mention all the genetic changes. And that's because our society, out of greed, lust for money, wants to make a crop of fruits and vegetables as cheaply as possible and use genetic changes and dyes and stuff to make fruits and vegetables that have no nutritional value, basically, look healthy and nutritious by genetic alteration and dyes and stuff. Now, God knew this. This is why one of the commandments to the children of Israel is they were commanded to let the land or the soil rest on a regular basis. They had to, on a regular basis, stop growing fruits and vegetables on the soil, give it a Sabbath rest, so that the natural environment, which was healthy, would replenish the soil with the nutrients, the God-given substances, the vitamins that would produce healthy food that would keep people alive and keep them healthy. So God, on a regular basis, commanded them to keep a Sabbath, to let the land rest. And they had to do it on a cyclical basis. And God would punish the children of Israel severely if they failed to keep the laws of the Sabbath. He would punish them severely. Why? Because among other things, if they didn't allow the land, the soil to rest, then diseases and sicknesses would have broken out among the Israelites, and they would have died and been wiped out, because God knew, because he designed everything, that soil has to be replenished so that it is a nutritious soil filled with vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and a whole spectrum of God-created substances that stimulate the immune system and that keep the body healthy. But what we do in America and other industrial nations, we endlessly use crops out of the same soil, and in some cases never replenish the soil. So, I mean, I don't know, does that go back up to 1,000 crops? Does it go back to 30 years of using the same soil and not replenishing it? So what they'll do to fake replenish it is they'll get a bag of the cheapest vitamins and nutrients and minerals, just some cheap stuff, and they'll just hire workers to throw handfuls of it in the soil. And that's a fake replenishment. It's almost useless. It's going through the motions, but it's not replenishing the soil. And on top of that, there's an artificial substance known as biosludge that local city governments take truckfuls of this substance called biosludge. It looks like watery mud. But what it really is, it's the city's water system, when the drains are allowing all the used water to collect. They collect it, but it becomes a muddy-like substance. And what I'm going to say briefly is so disgusting, but you need to know the truth, because this is a common practice. Local cities, certain townships, etc., I mean, a huge percentage of them, they conduct through the sewer systems and water that's been used and toilets that have been used and all kinds of things like that. They collect all that refuse, okay? And it's a muddy substance, biosludge, and it's a mixture of people's prescription pills, illegal drugs, toxic chemicals, teeth from dental offices, human hair with sludge in it, aborted babies. I'm sorry for being disgusting, but it's a biosludge is a composition of urine, feces, all kinds of toxic materials, dead rats. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not embellishing this to frighten you. This is not sensationalism. And heavy metals that cause radiation and poisoning, like metals that are used in construction, and just it's contaminated waste filled with diseases, viruses, and bacteria. And yeah, it might this total poisonous biosludge might contain 1% randomly of some vitamins and nutrition. And so what these cities and certain, it's quite common all over the United States of America and in the Western world. They send out trucks and often distribute it free to these giant farms which produce the genetically modified crops, and they dump this biosludge all over the soil of these crops. And the biosludge is supposed to be a substance that helps the crops grow healthier crops, kind of like, fertilizer, and give back nutrients and stuff. But I saw this video on biosludge and what it looks like, and you can see what's in the sludge. It is disgusting, repulsive, horrific, and deadly. So that's what you're eating. That's what you're eating. I mean, it sounds like a horror novel. A novelist of horror books couldn't write something so bad. So how are you going to fight all this? You're not dealing with normal contaminants, normal bacteria, normal viruses. Plus, you add to that what's coming out of the chemtrails, what's coming out of the pollutants and toxins in the water, etc. You have to fight back aggressively. You have to say, I'm not going to allow the combination of these things to kill me, or reduce my ability to live. I am going to declare war nutritionally and do everything that I can, and even on a modest budget. You just have to use your head. See, ask yourself, why is it that the foods that we eat from these giant food corporations, why did they get rid of the iodine that was naturally in bread? I mean, decades and decades ago. Why did they get rid of the iodine? Now, you need to see a doctor when you take iodine as a supplement, and some people should not take iodine as a supplement. It depends on your thyroid gland and your particular body. So you have to be very careful about iodine. Iodine can be in excessive doses. So you need to check with a medical professional, a doctor, but one who also knows nutrition. But you see, iodine, when you're taking iodine in the proper doses, which used to be naturally in bread, and salt, they took the iodine out of the bread and the salt. They stripped it out. And iodine is an essential mineral because is iodine that works in conjunction with the thyroid gland that purges your body of toxic metals, dangerous metals in the body that will give you all kinds of disease. And among these dangerous metals that can only be purged by things like iodine working in conjunction with the thyroid gland, iodine is given out whenever there's a nuclear disaster or a nuclear bomb or a nuclear meltdown or a Fukushima or whatever. Iodine is distributed by the government in massive packets and supplies, because if you can get iodine into people's system quickly enough after there's been a nuclear attack or a nuclear accident, iodine will scientifically help to purge radiation, which causes cancer. It will help to purge the heavy metals that cause the radiation out of your body. Otherwise, you're just going to die of radiation poisoning. But if you are taking the right dosage and supplements of iodine, your body will detoxify itself of the radioactive content that's going to kill you. And there's a whole spectrum of other minerals that have deliberately been stripped out of our modern diets. These were not non-essential minerals. These were the minerals that actually activated the immune system or helped us to detoxify, etc. So why is it that they're missing? I think it's intentional. That's why you have to fight back. You have to gain knowledge. I know this has been intense and heavy, but you have to gain knowledge. We're going to do additional programs on this, but you have to gain knowledge on what supplements, what foods, what vegetables, what protocols you can follow to stimulate your system at its highest level, to detoxify your body, to make sure you're getting the antioxidants and other God-given substances. You're getting the right minerals, because you see, we wouldn't have to be taking all these supplements of vitamins and minerals if we weren't getting our food supply from crops, fruits, and vegetables that are being grown and not only genetically modified by genetically modified seeds, but we're growing them in soil that has been stripped of all of its nutritional value, of all of its minerals and vitamins. You see, if we weren't eating crops that were not stripped of all the vitamins and minerals, we wouldn't have to be supplementing. We're supplementing because our fruits and vegetables are void of nutrition and minerals. And biosludge is the dumping of the most vile, disease-ridden toxins, bacteria, and viruses on our soil. It's just mind-blowing. This is not what God wants. Why is all this happening? I know this is heavy. I apologize for that, but you know what? I would rather deliver a heavy message to you and help save your life than deliver light, sweet messages and tell you everything's wonderful, smile and be happy, and then you drop dead. I can't do that. Some can, I can't. I couldn't live with myself if I did. You read in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, what's the root cause of this? Satan is the temporary god of this world. And it talks about in Revelation, which 74% of evangelical churches refuse to teach, forbid the teaching of the book of Revelation. So their people wouldn't know this. But in the book of Revelation, it talks about Mystery Babylon. That's the world system, the satanic Luciferian world system. And Mystery Babylon is known as the Great Whore or the Great Harlot. And you read in this description of Mystery Babylon that the kings and the mighty men of the earth, that would include the CEOs of these multinational corporations, such as the globalists and all over the food supply and the fruits and the vegetables and the terminator seeds and the toxins they use and the poisons they use. That, when the Bible in Revelation tells us that the kings of the earth and the mighty men of the earth, in their commerce, and it's talking about commerce, it's talking about selling and buying and merchandise, that would include food and crops, etc. When men and women of great power, like the globalist elite, it says, it talks about the mighty men of the earth and the kings of the earth fornicating with the great harlot mystery Babylon. What that means is they're selling their souls, fornicating with mystery Babylon. They're selling their souls. They're selling their consciences. They're willing to do wrong and evil, and they are expecting Satan, through the system of mystery Babylon, to reward them with fame and fortune and power and wealth. That's what is driving people to do the unthinkable. You say, what monster would be making decisions that would produce this poisonous food and the GMOs and the toxins and the chemicals and the biosludge? That's like Nazi type thinking. Well, when men and women have rejected Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior and have sold their souls to the devil, they are serving then this satanic world system, which in the book of Revelation is called Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. And they derive their power, their wealth, their fortune, their fame, their luxury from, the Bible says, that the mighty men, the kings of the earth, from fornicating with the great harlot, mystery Babylon. And that's talking about an illicit oneness with evil and the willingness to do evil, to do abominations, to break all of God's laws, to profit off the deaths and the diseases that come mankind. They're willing to do that because they don't worship the Lamb upon the throne, Jesus Christ. They worship Lucifer and mystery Babylon because Lucifer promises to give them all the illicit pleasures and wealth and money and power and fame, and you know, they get to live like gods or kings and queens. But they got it by violating God's laws, by rejecting Jesus Christ and worshiping Lucifer. Because you see, the only way you could do these atrocities, like be the CEO of a genetically modified organism corporation, toxins and biosludge and all that stuff, the only way you could do that, because you would know what the outcome is of making those evil choices. The men and women, the fathers and mothers that will die early, diseases that will come upon the innocent young children, and so on and so forth, are horrific. But they're willing, see, they're worshiping sex, money, power, position. Those are idols. They're worshiping personal peace and prosperity. And in exchange for that worship, which ultimately is the worship of Lucifer, they are rewarded by Lucifer and this mystery Babylon world system with temporal fame, fortune, money, power, etc. But at the end, they're going to stand before God at the great white throne of judgment and give an account of their lives. And none of this will be hidden before God. That's why the Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You see, we have a healthy respect, more than a healthy respect. We should actually tremble. Evangelicals like to soften it. The last thing we need in today's society is to soften the cutting-edge sword of truth. We have sin in epidemic forms. And one of the primary problems is that people don't believe in God. And if they do have some kind of belief in God, they think God is a kind of Santa Claus and will wink and say boys will be boys and girls will be girls in front of all these horrible atrocities, because we've muted the integrity of God, the holiness of God, the righteousness of God. We should tremble before God. Yes, we should love him, but we should also tremble, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And we should fear doing such abominations ourselves. We're going to talk more about this, and as well solutions from God's Word, the power of prayer and healing. But you can't eat poisons all day long and expect God to bless your request for prayer. You got to be prayed for, yes, of course. But you also have to be obedient. God bless you. I'm Paul McGuire. Visit paulmcguire.us. That's paulmcguire.us.